There's a lot of poverty. What are you going to do for the poor in West Virginia?
We're going to be working everything we can to create good opportunities.
And we need to tax the rich.
Well, I agree with that. I definitely agree. That's the one number thing we should be doing is fixing the tax code so everybody pays their fair share. We should be also negotiating for lower drug prices. We should be doing all these things.
They need that. Hold pharma accountable.
I agree with you 1,000%. We're all on the same page, gang. We really are.
If we can expand Medicare, adding dental, vision, and hearing coverage to Medicare, that's a real opportunity that we can do.
Well, we have, here, let me just explain on that one. We will get to that eventually, but right now we can't even take care of it. It's going to go broke in 2026. Let us fix and repair that
That's not true. Tax the rich.
first. We're taxing the rich. I agree. We're going to make the rich and the famous pay.
Well, how much is it so good? They can cover this, you can cover that without 1%, not your 26. So when you think about it, we just passed a Pentagon budget of $788 billion.
We do it about every year.
No, and that over 10 years is $6 trillion, right? $6 trillion, and we're talking about.
How much do you think that we spend every year on non-discretionary, basically non-defense?
Not
Just
enough.
as much.
Clearly not enough.
Do you know we pay? Let me just give you all this.
But I'm just saying we can afford. If we can
I know,
afford
let me
this.
just tell you. Let me give you one little bit of information. Okay, so.
Wait, I got one little bit of information for you. The Republicans are likely to take over
That's a
the
shame,
Senate.
because if all this
We
stuff
don't. This is
popular,
like
we should
this is
win
our
everything.
one
you're
chance
not gonna
right
deliver
now
if
to
you don't
pass
deliver.
the
You think they won't
legislation.
repeal it? If we don't do it right, do you think they won't repeal it as soon as they take over? If, you're
If
afraid
you
of
don't
taking
pass
over-
this, we're gonna.
Yeah,
lose the
they're not
midterm.
going to pass things like this for the people. They're not.
Let me
This
give
is
you
our
this. We spent-
chance.
we've
We can't
invested-
wait.
we've
So, Michael, much like Joe Manchin on his yacht, we have also been on vacation, haven't we? From Dangpol.
Yes, a much earned one.
Yeah, no, really has been very much earned. But yeah, basically we had quite a lot of issues with, well, on my end, basically with internet and my laptop and people getting ill, and it just hasn't materialized in a way which I would have liked. But anyway, we're back now, and are you ready to talk about the Democrats, Michael?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I've been looking forward to for the past, 10 months?
Yes, exactly. So about 2 weeks ago, the Democrats recently lost the governor race in Virginia, which you can see on screen now. The results should pop up, and almost lost the New Jersey governor race too, which would have been a massive shock considering New Jersey is very much a Democrat state. Now in Virginia, though, we had Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, going up against Glenn Youngkin, the Republican. And Joe Biden won this state by about 10% 1 year ago in the presidential election. But this time around, Youngkin, the Republican, won Virginia by about 2%. Now, Virginia has been trending blue for a while, and therefore this result is just a bit crazy, Michael. Just a bit crazy. A 12-point swing in 1 year. That's nothing to play down. But is it really that crazy considering it's kind of similar to what happened last time? The Democrats controlled Congress and the presidency, because the current Democrats have been making, the exact same mistakes in Congress as they did 12 years ago. If we look at this graph, which should be on your screen right now, Democrat legislative losses under Obama's White House. Tell me what you see, Michael.
Well, what I see is that the Democrats, they were doing good in 2009, and then they just flopped pretty much immediately. As soon as they were in charge for a year, the Republicans just took over.
Yes, as you can see, 2011, 2013, and it just widened up until Donald Trump came in, and then the Democrats, got back into it, that state legislature. And of course, if you want to look at the House of Representatives and the Senate as well, you can see the Democrats gaining big in 2008 and then losing that all under Barack Obama. I think the Democrats under Obama, up until Trump, lost about 1,000 seats in all areas of government across the United States. So yeah, this is basically what happened in Virginia, is just a continuation of that trend, with Trump kind of being a bit of a roadblock, given the crazy nature of his presidency. And it does seem that without Trump, history is going to repeat itself, and that is because the Democrats are still not doing enough in Congress. The Build Back Better plan, Michael, the BBB plan, which was once $3.5 trillion over 10 years, has now been halved to $1.75 trillion. And part of the reason for the slash in that amount of money is that a lot of the programs that would have helped ordinary Americans have been taken out of this plan. Democrats dropped paid family and medical leave from the plan. Free community college for 2 years, they dropped that. And legislation which would allow the federal government to have the power to negotiate prescription drug prices may still be in the bill, but we have to wait and see. That could likely still be cut. And, of course, tax hikes on the rich and corporations as well. Naturally, of course, they were dropped from the plan too. Pelosi was apparently key in getting that last part killed, Michael. Not tax hikes ever on the richest Americans. Of course, that wasn't going to be included.
Well,
in the
Luke,
final bill, right?
obviously you've got to be concerned about the debt. That's why the government needed to decrease their revenue, to solve the debt.
Yeah, and to be fair, Pelosi's always going on about the debt. She's a real deficit hawk, and that's why it makes sense for the government to decrease the amount of money they get from taxes. So it's just a logical thing to do from her perspective. But anyway, even after all of that had been taken out of the Build Back Better bill, the Senate still have not passed the bill, mainly because of two senators, Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. They're basically acting as Republicans at this point. Joe Manchin, as we showed earlier on his yacht, that's a real nice touch, the video on the yacht. Very on the nose, as you can see. But he has been demanding that spending be cut, just like Kirsten Sinema, for typical BS centrist arguments about keeping the debt down.
Yes.
Yet just last week, the bipartisan infrastructure bill was passed, which was not paid for. It added $250 billion to the U.S. national debt, but it did give some nice subsidies to the oil and gas industry. So maybe that's the reason why Manchin and Sinema weren't that concerned with the debt. What do you think of that, Michael?
Yeah, obviously it's really important that the poorest people in society pay off that debt. Of course, the richest people, you don't want to tax them, or you don't want to cut into their businesses that make huge amounts of money while destroying the planet for everyone. But those kids, who want to go to community college and actually better themselves and potentially improve the economy in the long run, well, they've got to pay for they've got a debt to pay for, Luke. Come on.
Yeah, I guess you got to respect just the flagrant, again, BS coming out of people like Manchin and Sinema. Oh yeah, we really care about the debt, but here's a bill which adds $250 billion onto the debt. Yeah, we'll pass that without even, blinking an eye. But the thing is, they can kind of get, away with this kind of stuff, given how the media covers this, these bills being passed in Congress. Take a look at some Politico analysis on the Build Back Better bill. On the climate provisions in the bill. Winner, Manchin. Loser, environmentalists. The entire climate agenda of the Biden administration is in question right now, thanks to one man, and it's unclear if this dynamic will change, given the positions of the senator from coal mining West Virginia. Look at that. Loser environmentalists. That's how they framed it. Not loser, the planet, just people in general, like the 7.5 billion of us that live on this planet. Just a group of environmentalist activists. And this is how American media frames things, Michael. So yeah, it does kind of make sense how they can get away with it.
Well, Americans love their sports. Obviously, they could get behind a competition where, the stakes are so high that we literally die if one side loses. It just adds an extra level of It just adds an extra level of excitement to it, Luke, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. And the American media covering what's going on in Congress like it's a sports game. That is pretty accurate, I will say. But the thing is, it's not just Manchin and Sinema who are holding up, the Build Back Better plan, because Democrats in the Senate, they haven't really called out their behavior, And Biden, as the president, he just doesn't seem to care that much about getting this bill passed, even after it has been severely neutered. Again, it's been cut in half from 3.5 to 1.75 billion. The only group of Dems who care about passing the bill seems to be the Progressive Caucus, the squad and all that. It really is, a failure of the whole Democratic Party. I don't think you can just pin this on Manchin and Sinema, even though the Dems would like you to do that.
No, yeah, I think this is like one of the popular tactics with obviously the system in America where you just need a bare majority. It seems like a lot of the time with these laws where the politicians don't want to pass it, but you get the impression that they'd get, negative feedback for not passing it. You just get a few Democrats, I guess usually from more conservative states, who fall on their sword. Of course, and obviously I say fall on their sword, even though they actually enjoy it, because they're masochists and sadists, where they're the ones who oppose it. And obviously, like you say, everyone else, it's almost as if they like to pretend that the Democrats actually want to pass this, but of course, overwhelmingly they don't. And of course, you know, it's not as if, oh, if Joe Manchin and Cinema weren't there, suddenly everything would be fine. No, if it wasn't Joe Manchin and Cinema, it would be somebody else. So, oh, sorry guys, we just can't pass it. It's just these couple of senators. We're just going to have to cut more stuff from it.
Yeah, it'd be like Chris Coons from Delaware, for instance. He'd be like the person that, you know, Biden and, you know, the rest of the Democrats have to convince to pass this bill. If Manchin and Sinema went around, you know, if the Democrats had, you know, 52 seats instead of 50, it'd beat him instead. You know, again, it's just quite convenient for them. But of course, the question is, why is it that this gridlock that has been self-imposed by the Democrats on themselves, you know, why did this cost them the gubernatorial race in Virginia and almost cost them the race in New Jersey? And why will it certainly cost them next year in the midterms as well if they keep this up? Well, Michael, the policies that the Democrats are taking out of the Build Back Better bill are quite popular. And, of course, they're not passing any other popular policies. So let's have a look, actually, at these stats here. So, as you can see on screen, paid family and medical leave for new parents, 70% of Americans support it, 20% oppose. Allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, well, let's see if that gets passed, but 72% of Americans will support it, 15% will oppose it. And adding dental and vision benefits to Medicare, support 82, oppose 11. Again, just massively, overwhelmingly popular. And yeah, the Democrats aren't going to pass these policies, or at least they'll take months and months to do them, which, again, given the popularity, you think, hey, no-brainer, pass them immediately, wouldn't you?
No, yeah, I mean, obviously it would seem like they are shooting themselves in the foot, although I suppose, you know, it's more likely the case that they actually have something to gain from this, and, you know, there's a lot of money, I'm sure, involved in not wanting these kind of progressive pieces of legislation to be passed. And obviously the consequence of that is that two people who recognize that the Democrats are basically manipulatively not passing this legislation, basically on purpose, like you say, a self-imposed gridlock, it makes the Democrats look terrible. And also, I mean, to the people who think that the Democrats do sincerely want to pass this stuff, whether they're for it or against it, it makes the Democrats look incompetent. So, yeah, the Democrats basically have to make themselves look terrible at governing in order to give themselves an excuse to not pass the stuff that they don't want to pass, but could pass, and they'd be more popular if they did. And it's really hard to imagine any political strategy that could make less sense than that.
Yeah, unless you don't want to win, which we'll get onto later. But yeah, it does make them look terrible. It does. And talking of the elections in Virginia again, there are two distinct places in American politics, the suburbs and then the rural areas. The Democrats lost in both those areas 2 weeks ago, as you can see on screen, like about 10% in each compared to 2020. There wasn't like a massive hit in the suburbs or in rural areas. It was, you know, consistent across the board. And, you know, suburban voters helped Biden win the White House in 2020, but now it is clear that, you know, they're happy to go back to the Republican Party now that Trump isn't on the ballot to frighten them, which again is entirely predictable. And also rural voters aren't being drawn into voting Democrat. Well, why would they, you know? I mean, there's no Trump on the ballot, so maybe people thought, you know, that changed because he really engaged rural voters. But ultimately, why was there any reason to go out and vote for the Democrats if you were a rural voter in Virginia? You know, critical race theory as well. That bogeyman has been unleashed all across America and definitely in Virginia, just like the Tea Party 12 years ago. And yeah, the Democrats are once again letting the Republicans define them, basically, and they're just not doing anything. And that strategy from the Democrats doesn't work when you are not running against Donald Trump, which they weren't in this Virginia election. Thing is, Michael, you know, Democrats have to offer people something. You know, those policies highlighted before would be incredible. It would give suburban voters the chance to back the Dems still. But also rural voters who would be helped by this stuff would presumably vote for them a bit more as well. Maybe that can break through, you know, these people being focused on critical race theory.
No, yeah, I feel like this is the constant frustration with, I mean, both in the UK and America, these lame kind of centristy liberal types not being able to actually give a clear vision, so obviously they end up just being whatever the Republicans want them to be. And the reality is, of course, for example, I don't think the Democrats can necessarily win the critical race theory battle. I think that's been too kind of heavily, like the language there has been too heavily co-opted and, you know, manipulated by the right. But what the Democrats could do is, of course, put the focus onto something else. They could say, okay, let's make sure that people, their top priority isn't critical race theory, because realistically, with all the things going on in the world, why would critical race theory be your top priority? But it seems like they don't have anything else that they can do to take the focus away from critical race theory.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, if Republican voters are motivated by that, and of course that, is a massive advantage for them. But, if you shine a light on other things, that can maybe take, some people who are, not really into the whole CRT thing, but, kind of like, yeah, it's a bit of a problem. Like basically swing voters, if you define yourself, if you offer people something, that can get the focus away from issues where you don't do so well at. It would give them a chance to win suburban voters, rural voters. For instance, if we look at this tweet from Sahil Kapoor, Virginia 2020, white women 50% Biden, 49% Trump. Then just a year later, white women 57% for Youngin, 43% for McAuliffe. A 15-point swing to the GOP with this group of white women. And of course, without Trump on the ballot, again, that was predictable. But what if, Michael, you ran on parental leave? And actually pass parental leave, wouldn't that have a big effect on this demographic of white women? I mean, obviously it would. And that's the thing. If you make yourself the party of parental leave, we're going to look after you. If you're a woman, if you're a young mother, that could be, massive.
Yeah.
And that could really help you with that demographic. And yeah, I saw on CNN after McAuliffe lost to Youngin, it was Van Jones who said that, Democrats need to get back to the issues that matter and not, talking about these trillions of dollars and all this, all this bill stuff, and I'm like, well, do you not think that parental leave matters to families? Do you not think that would be a massive benefit to families? And, voters basically see the Democrats in control of the whole federal government, and basically they look like they're refusing to do anything.
It seems like when he says go back to issues that matter, he's basically saying go back to issues that Republicans have decided are important. If he's saying that, literally the economy. I mean, Bill Clinton literally had the phrase, and I mentioned it before, but it's all about the economy. So we've now gone from that to it's all about pointless cultural bullshit. And actually, just another quick thing. I bet you, white women are probably the people who are most infused about the critical race theory stuff, because obviously women tend to be more involved in their kids' education than men would be in stereotypical households, and I imagine lots of Republican households would be. So yeah, giving them something else would be especially important there, and I imagine that does explain a bit of the swing towards Republicans from white women.
Yeah, no, exactly. It literally does. I mean, I'm not sure Van Jones would, because of who he is, would be advocating for relenting to Republicans and culture war stuff. I don't know what he was advocating for, to be honest. He's a very weird guy. But yeah, basically, there was this ridiculous narrative from people, kind of like Van Jones, saying that Biden needs to stop going so left. So this tweet from Trip Gabriel, I think, highlights that well. Once again, Rep. Spanberger, that's Abigail Spanberger, ex-CIA Democratic representative, sings the Canary in the Coal Mine tune. Nobody elected Biden to be FDR. They elected him to be normal and stop the chaos. Again, great framing from the New York Times there. Again, another key theme of this whole fucking mess is the media lets the Democrats get away with quite a few things, including, just not doing anything. And even then they say, he's being like FDR. What the hell do you mean he's being like FDR? He hasn't passed anything. What is Spanberger talking about? Literally, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Biden ran on passing all of this stuff in Congress, and he isn't. And the explanation now is he's going too far left. Voters don't see, right and left really regarding issues like Medicare, negotiating drug prices, But if they did, see things like that, they would prefer Biden go more left. It is just ridiculous how, again, people, centrist Democrats and their media allies are trying to frame this. And also, who did the Democrats run in the Virginia gubernatorial race? Terry McAuliffe, Michael. Terry fucking McAuliffe. Probably the most boring centrist candidate you could find in Virginia. And yeah, you saw a video of him, didn't you?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a town hall or whatever, I guess that would be it. And he was basically saying that he basically said average families, they're concerned about the debt. I think he might have even touched on the whole, government debt is akin to household debt thing. Families get concerned about debt. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and exactly. So that's who you're running against. And again, his whole campaign, he acted like he was running against Trump.
Yes.
Which of course he wasn't, because Trump wasn't on the ballot. Trump's hardly in the news really nowadays, which, isn't great for Democrats, but he just isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure there was, I'm pretty sure there was a campaign ad that literally was the whole thing was just, Youngin is endorsed by Trump. And that was it. That was literally paid for by McAuliffe for governor.
Yeah, so. I mean, that was the That was their only tactic. And again, like, this is a year where Trump isn't on the ballot. He's not, at all in this, in the national conversation right now. I mean, that may change in the future. So it's just an awful tactic, which clearly didn't work. And then again, you've got people like Spanberger and the New York Times blaming like Biden for being too much like FDR, which is just hilarious. But anyway, there was a lot of sentiment at the start of Biden's term that, the Democrats weren't going to make the same mistakes as they did 12 years ago. The Democrat Party's changed. They didn't stand for anything throughout the Obama presidency, until Trump turned up, and then they were, the party who were against Trump. And that worked because, a lot of people hated Trump. Now he's gone, they have nothing to define themselves as, unless they want to pass popular policies and shout about it, which they clearly don't want to do. And yeah, swing voters look at them and think, well, why would I vote Democrat? What is the reason? They control all three branches of government. The effects of the pandemic, aren't gone. They're still there. Inflation in America is at higher than normal levels because of the price of fuel. They're just not doing anything. They're just sitting on their hands in Congress, not solving any problems. They look like they don't want to help out the American people, which I don't think do. I think generally they would rather lose than help out the American people. So that's what happened 2 weeks ago, and they will lose again in the future. I mean, they don't really care about governing. That accusation was hurled at the Republicans during the Trump years, when they hardly passed any bills, when they controlled all three branches of Congress. But it looks like you can say the same for the Democrats, Michael. They just don't want to do anything.
Yeah, it seems like the Democrats, their main goal is just to have that 1 year of being in charge so they can slowly watch it disintegrate. Basically, they're playing dominoes. They're setting them all up, and their only goal is just to watch them slowly tumble down because it's entertaining to them.
Yeah, doing that with dominoes, I guess, is one strategy. But yeah, but literally, I do think they have one strategy, which is obviously they lose power to Republicans, then Republicans govern. People get sick of the Republicans because, they're a weird, crazy party, especially with Trump, of course. The American people got pretty sick of him. And then they get a ton of donations and people vote for them, in these big, like, blue wave elections. And those happen, a couple of times. And this tactic is what won them seats from 2006 to 2008 and from 2018 to 2020. But then they sit on their hands, they do nothing because they don't want to do anything. And then, of course, that lost them seats in 2010 to 2016 and is what will lose them seats and votes again from 2022 to 2028 now.
2028 if they're lucky.
Yeah, well, that's the whole range, So I think they're going to lose seats next year, 2024, 2026, 2028. Until something or someone comes along that horrors the American suburbanites and they go back to voting for the Democrats. And the cycle repeats itself once again. And yeah, the title of this video is, the pathetic Democrats will lose more elections, but that's the thing. They would rather lose more elections than stop being pathetic. So there you go.
Politico, I got some losers for you. The Democrats.
Good one.